All right, good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful Monday morning, and it's time for yet another live reaction to Solo Leveling special episodes. So let's go ahead and get the formalities out of the way, shall we? Yo, peoples, Kyushu92 here, and welcome back to more Solo Leveling. Just to give you a little bit of a recap of where we left off before, Suho managed to defeat Igris and found himself going through another gate that led to the big burning flaming inferno that was the demon castle. And there he basically finds that he's one-shotting everything, including the big bosses. He's none of them are threat to him. He literally in one panel gets drawn like Saitama, only with hair, and he finds that he's basically able to take down everybody pretty easily. And then he gets to the top where he's meets Essel for the first time. And even though he gets prepared to take her on, she stops him and basically says like, "Hey, we're going to have a feast or whatever." And she invites him, but just like his dad, he says like, "Maybe next time. I'll come back to see you again." And then Essel's all like, "This is exactly what your father said." But this is her thinking to herself. So that happens, and then Suho goes through another gate where he's met face to face with Beru, who is just bawling his eyes out because, as the most emotional shadow that Jin has, Beru has the biggest attachment to Suho. And as he's fighting Suho, he's just crying the entire time until Suho lands a big old massive uppercut on him. And that's where the chapter pretty much ended. So let's get started with special episode 18. We see and if you guys want to see what I'm seeing, either go to the official site on Tapas or just, look up Solo Leveling special episode 18, and I'm pretty sure you'll find plenty of choices. But as I always say, support the official release. So we got a big clawed hand making its way towards Suho, and every single time that Beru tries to aim his claw at Suho, because he did this in the last chapter, every single time that Beru tries to land a hit on Suho, he keeps stopping because he doesn't want to actually injure or harm, the young master. And every single time he freezes, Suho returns with like a retaliation punch, and he's kind of looking confused at Beru. Then Beru just heals himself because, he has the healing powers of Min Byung-gu. He has the ability to just basically heal himself. And then Beru, still crying, launches at Suho. And he slashes with such resounding force that the shockwave of him slashing at Suho causes the ground behind Suho to just completely break apart and get blown back. Think when Satoru Gojo was fighting Jogo, and he sent an explosion towards Gojo, but he blocked it with the Limitless, but the whole area behind him got destroyed. Pretty much picture that's what happened with Beru versus Suho right now. And then Beru's just right there, and you see a close-up of his face, and he's still crying. And every single time that he gets close to Suho, Suho keeps hitting him because Beru keeps stopping. And then Suho is going, "What is up with this guy?" Because, he doesn't want to hit him. I dropped my guard. And then it cuts to Beru staggering away from Suho and then falling to the floor. And then Suho's thinking, "That was close. That was way too close." Beru just gave up. He just gave up because he didn't land a single hit on Suho. He kept getting close. To the point where Suho couldn't really defend himself, but he just stopped shy of actually hitting him, allowing Suho to beat him. And in doing so, Suho has leveled up at least 5 times. That winged ant was super terrifying, but there was something odd about it. It seemed to be holding back its full power, always freezing at critical moments and leaving itself wide open. And as it shows Beru fading, He's still looking massively teary-eyed. Not that I'm complaining, since I barely managed to take it down. Ugh, I hurt all over. And then another gate opens up behind Suho. Another gate? I mean, I hope this means I can finally return home, given that I'm not leveling up anymore. Name, Sung Suho, level 99. Oh, so Suho has apparently hit the cap for his level? Interesting. Huh? The heck? Ugh, there's more. And he walks through the gate, and we see dragons, we see giants. He is just dragons and giants everywhere. Dragons and giants. He just walks into a brand new battlefield with them. It's just one darn thing after another. And then it shows Suho launching at a dragon as he prepares to fight all these giants and dragons. Like, there's tons of dragons in the air. Like, even in the distance, you can see like the little lines of all the multitudes of dragons that are flying towards him. It's just one dang thing after another, and my level's still at 99. And he's fighting all these dragons, he's fighting all these giants, and he's basically bodying all of them. Then it cuts to, his name was Gaiman, right? Or Jaimin. It cuts to a creature that looks like Gaiman, and it stabs at Suho with his trident, but Suho dodges and uppercuts this big giant lizard man. Then it cuts to a giant who's trying to hit Suho with his sword, and Suho basically backhands this giant sword so hard that it snaps it in half. And this giant is still in this punching motion as Suho runs across his arm and proceeds to rising knee this giant so hard in the face that it almost looks like his mouth explodes with blood. It just shoots out of his mouth. That's how hard he's been hit. How hard do you need to hit someone to make blood shoot out of their mouth? I'm not going to look that up because I don't think that's information that I need to know. But Suho lands on the ground and he's standing face to face with giant polar bears, some that kind of look eerily similar to Tank, while some orcs or ogres are riding on their backs. And Suho is just basically destroying all their weapons with mere punches and kicks, and then he's bodying every single one. Every single one, all the orcs, all the bears, he's just bodying everybody. And he's just running back and forth because he's just he's just going from one foe to the next. Then it shows some orcs, like the big orcs, like the red orcs that we've seen before, but they're not red. They're green with like tribal tattoos. And they try to hit Suho, like they jump him. They try to jump him, but he dodges out of the way. And then it cuts to a dragon that another orc is riding on as it bears down on Suho. And he manages to dodge just narrowly away from this dragon before this dragon can, take a good chunk out of the young master. And Suho looks up in shock as he sees even more dragons, even more orcs riding on dragons, surrounding him. Okay, so you want to do aerial combat, huh? And then it cuts to one red orc, this one specifically red, and as it shows a close-up of his face, it shows Suho grabbing this thing's face and then proceeding to punch it away from him. Then he starts zigzagging through the air, rebounding off of numerous orcs and dragons as he's using them as stepping stones to launch himself to the next target. He's like pinballing and ricocheting between these different targets on his way up. Hold on. Is my audio fine? Let me see. Yes, my audio's fine. I just had to double check. Also, let me check chat real quick. Good to see you, Bleo. It's Stritzy. Hey, Stritzy, what's going on? Good to see you, Snow. Good to see you, Psycho. And good to see you, OD. Just watching my solo leveling videos, you missed some pages in 1 through 10 chapters. Yeah, I know, because I wasn't reading the unofficial site at that time. I was not reading an official site at that time, but I started to find some much better places. Yeah, I know, I missed some pages. I know I did. I'm not going to go back and redo them, but I mean, yeah, I know I did. It was a while back when I did that too, so I didn't know any better, and I didn't try to go to any official sites. But glad you're enjoying them all the same. But Suho is rebounding throughout these different spots, and then he's in the air and something is staring at him, and it's the Titans. The very same Titans we just seen Jin take down before we saw him living out the rest of his life as like an inspector and then chief inspector. These planet-consuming individuals, they now just appear in front of Suho, who is now riding his own dragon. And then it cuts to an individual. And it cuts to an individual who's standing on the top of this Titan going, it's already been 30 years since I joined the troops in the world of slumber. This game is only open to those who were once regarded as arch enemies. The fact that I was granted permission to participate in this form proves that my liege favors me as an excellent warrior. And I'm assuming that this is the same guy that was in charge of the Titans. This looks like the same guy that was in charge of the Titans when they invaded the Earth that Jin faced off against, and he basically just turned them all into his own personal shadow soldiers. As a matter of fact, I'm afraid your highness may not be able to withstand the full extent of my... And before he can even finish his sentence, Suho just one-shots him, and then proceeds to just go full tilt on every single Titan, and just destroys them all, apparently. Then it cuts to someone holding a staff with a dragon head, and inside the staff is a floating red orb, just right there in the middle. We all know who this is, as Suho looks up, and then he's just hit with overwhelming force of gravity. What the heck? This overwhelming pressure. It's like I'm being shoved down by some immense force. And it's Tusk, who's wearing Jin's jacket as he's causing gravity to force Suho down to the ground. Is it coming from that guy? Come to think of it, both the Dark Knight and the Dark End had shadowy forms like that. Didn't I see another one who looked like that earlier? And it's just Tusk, as he's using his Staff of Avarice to force Suho down. Which must mean that these shadowy guys are the bosses of each stage. And then it just shows Suho being pressured deep into the ground. He's literally forced into the ground, and the ground itself is just being forced by all this gravity. All I gotta do is get rid of that bastard. Then it shows multiple shadow dragons around Tusk. And Suho can only look on as he's thinking, huh? What's going on? As these dragons are preparing to fire on him. Was my guess wrong? How come there are 3 more shadowy monsters? And then all these dragons, all 3 dragons, just unleash an explosive fire breath so potent, it's almost akin to an atomic explosion. The whole area just not just the area where Suho is, but the entire area is blown up. And it just goes up. If you've seen like the trailer for Oppenheimer, it pretty much looks like that. And these dragons just keep firing. These dragons just keep firing on the location of where Suho is. Then all of a sudden, something shoots out towards one of the dragons, and it hits the dragon, and it turns out that it's Suho. And Suho has apparently launched himself at these dragons, despite being hit by apparently being hit by this massive fire breath. And he just goes in between all the dragons and hits every single one of them, landing in a superhero landing, while the same explosion that he was apparently caught up in is still ongoing. He's pretty much taken down all 3 of the dragons and landed before the explosion finished. And then it shows Suho gathering up power in his right hand and then punching in a direction. Either he's punching in a direction or some sort of powers emanating from his fists, because these dragons are getting hit extra hard. And then it shows Suho just going back to killing the orcs and the dragons from earlier. I'll start by taking down the one that looks like the big pain in the butt. and he flies up in the air, and he's face to face with Tusk, who's gathering this massive burning fireball. It's so big that it's literally taken up half of the panel that it's in. And Suho's just standing there as Tusk is preparing to bring down basically Sephiroth's meteor from Final Fantasy VII. He's preparing to bring this massive supernova down on Suho. And then Tusk aims his staff forward, and that causes like a massive he aims in a direction of Suho, and Suho moves out of the way, and the mountain range that's behind Suho gets hit by this blast, and that whole mountain just disappears. It's just gone. You just see, it's a tall mountain. Where the blast hits, it carves out a whole circular spot. The whole mountain is just obliterated. And then the entire area just goes up because you just see the initial blast of where it carves out the mountain. Then the rest of it explodes, and you don't even see the rest of the landscape because all you see is Suho and him getting caught up in the blast. And Suho is looking like, ah, like his mouth is just open wide after seeing this. It's basically a nuclear explosion. It's an even bigger explosion than what the dragons did. It took out not only the top of the mountain with the initial hit, but then the resounding explosion from that hit took out the entire area completely, including the mountain. And Suho can only look on in utter shock. And then Tusk is saying to himself, just as I thought. My new staff makes the explosions even more spectacular. And then Suho is just looking very nervously at Tusk. And that is the end of today's chapter. Ooh, this might be the first individual that Suho has come across that actually intimidates him. Interesting. Every time you hear Tusk, you think of Killer Instinct Gold on Nintendo 64. I miss my Nintendo 64 so much. Had it not blown up, I'd still have it today. Good Lord, why didn't I listen to my dad when I was a kid and wait for him to get an extension cord before I tried to plug my Nintendo 64 up? I was so hard-headed as a kid. But this was an interesting chapter. Suho has just been blitzing every single foe that has come across him, entering into new gates. He's apparently beaten Beru. And then he enters into a whole world that has dragons and giants and also titans. The very end, what I find funny about this chapter is this very same dude that Jin turned into a shadow soldier was doing the very same thing he did to Jin initially before Jin one-shot him. He was boasting about his power, saying how strong he is, and he winds up, before he even finished his sentences, like, I remember he tried to finish his sentence, but Jin killed him before he could say anything else. Suho basically bodies him before he says anything else. So even in death, he still can't say his entire sentence. But then Tusk shows up with a whole bunch of dragons, and it seems like Suho gets hit by the initial blast of the dragons, but he comes out, and he just comes out swinging. And he takes down the dragons, and he takes down more orcs and more smaller dragons that they're flying on. But then Tusk shows just how strong he is. And gathers up this massive fireball. And then he aims it at Suho, and Suho dodges. And then you just see the mountain range disappear, and you're thinking like, oh wow, he took out the whole mountain. No! After that happened, the whole area just explodes because the attack wasn't finished. And Suho can only just look on in utter shock, bewilderment, and horror as he sees that this is something that could definitely kill him if he ever got caught up in it. Because he almost got swept up in the shockwave of the attack going off. Tusk literally took out a portion of a mountain. But then the resulting explosion from that happening took out the mountain and the whole area with it. And that's Tusk just being like, I see. With this staff of mine, my explosions are even more spectacular. And he's all like, that's the kind of power I have. All while wearing Jin's old trench coat. And Uncle Beru couldn't harm his boy? Of course he couldn't. He went through the whole fight never landing a hit on Jin. Igris is not that type of individual. But Beru was all like, I don't want to harm him. And even when he could have, there were many times, even Suho said that he had a hard time fighting him. There were many times when Beru could have easily injured Suho and sent him right back to level 1 again. But he couldn't even bring himself to even touch him. That's how much he reveres Suho. So now we got Suho going up against Tusk and his greatly improved staff of avarice now. And this man is basically capable of causing nuclear explosions on a whim. Not only is he able to force Suho to ground by crushing him under immense gravity magic, but he's able to just create and shoot off nuclear blasts as well. And Suho's all like, how am I gonna beat this? So yeah, I did enjoy this chapter. I really did. Apparently, we are not done with this whole training or test or whatever this is for Suho. So we still got some more chapters to go. It still says to be continued, so this series is still going to keep going. Overall, I did enjoy this chapter, and I'm looking forward to the next one. Family got me breakfast, of which I'm going to eat. Overall, this was a good chapter. I enjoyed it. It just shows you that Suho may be strong, but he might apparently be in a situation where his fists are not going to just easily see him through this, given the fact that he's facing off against someone who can cause nuclear explosions that he almost got caught up in. So it should be interesting to see where the next chapter goes from here. I don't want to keep you here any longer than I already have because, one, I got One Piece to read later today, but I also have some hot breakfast that I intend to eat as well. So, to everyone here, all I can say is I really do hope you all enjoyed today's reaction, and I'm looking forward to the next one. And thank you for the continued support of this channel. I got a new goal to reach 100,000. It sounds unrealistic. It sounds unrealistic to some people, and it may even sound unconventional, but that's where I want to aim for. And with your help, I know I can. So, to everyone here, all I can say at the end of the morning is, hope you all enjoyed. Can't wait to see you all in my next video. And if you're new to the channel and you enjoyed what you saw here today, then like, subscribe, share this stream with everyone you know because the more the merrier. And maybe even consider becoming a member because I am always looking forward to entertaining you. So have a fantastic day. And once again, as always, later, peoples.